Here we go.
See, Renee, here's the thing, though.
Okay,
You're not a
here we go. We
perfectionist.
are live.
I am. So
We are live.
we are live, ladies and gentlemen. This
Ladies
is
and germs.
wonderful. It is myself. It is Renée Yaworsky. It is Rory Penland. And we are battling through tech issues. Surprise, surprise, which is why we are 10 minutes late in getting here. But we are here. Nonetheless, we are here. And we're going to do something a little bit different because our guest, Jay Thompson, had internet issues for the second time and is not able to make the show. But you're in for a treat. You are going to see for the first time a look into the mind and background of that man right there, Rory Penland, our dear friend and co-conspirator and co-creator and the host of It's Casual every Tuesday night. Mm-hmm. And he is here with us, pinch hitting for Jay Thompson. And it's going to be a grand old night, ladies and gentlemen.
We've been wanting to do this. It's one of those weird things like the cobbler's son goes shoeless, you know, like Rory, we work with him all the time. He's a part of the network. And it's just like me. I never get interviewed. You know, Diane, she interviewed me. I was shocked because I'm never getting interviewed. Yeah. Rory, we've never done a deep dive. And I get asked all the time about Rory and his career and all that. And now everyone's getting the answers that they've always asked. Oh, here we go.
Actually, to be honest with you, I am a songwriter. So,
well, there you go.
I've written songs for skits. I've written songs for jelly cakes. So,
there you go.
I am a songwriter. I wrote the Corn Dog Blues. That was mine.
Oh my gosh! And he's been saying it's his all this time. He's been taking credit. I feel like there's a lawsuit there. I feel like
no. Has he taken credit for that?
Rory's the world's greatest ghostwriter.
No, this is like Vanilla Ice saying he didn't steal under pressure.
So Rory,
and I want to show everyone this nice cup. Hold on.
Oh yes. The Tardan Media Network mugs, which will be for sale, and I will be getting one, and I'm sure Roy will as well before long.
Oh, damn straight! I need another. I just broke a coffee mug, so I need a new one.
You did that intentionally because you needed this one. That's
did it intentionally?
I have to have 4 coffee mugs
capitalism.
in my kitchen, and I just feel naked. So
I have
to get a 4th coffee mug.
Oh, so
that's it.
This one. Yeah,
you just solved my problem.
Okay,
so Rory,
my social distance special.
Yes.
Our sister group, SDF.
And Jonathan is wearing the
I Choose Awesome hat that Tom Cheshire is
I got one of those.
Not only making it, but selling. $20 a pop. If you want one, message Tom, and he will be more than welcome to give you one. So, Rory.
Hey, man, he'll make you one. Don't worry, man. He'll pick one up for you.
So, Rory, where in this wide world of ours?
Of our network.
Yes. Rory, where in this wide world of ours were you born?
I was born in Miami, Florida, actually. I'm a Florida boy.
What?
Through and through.
No
wow.
way.
I stayed in Florida from 1964 up until 2004. And that's when I moved to China. So 40 years, and then I moved to China to be with my wife, who's Chinese.
Wow. Oh my God.
So I did not know you were born in Miami. I had always had it in my mind that you were born in like Chicago or someplace like that and then came south.
Well, here's the funny part.
Yeah, the Midwest.
When I was 14, I moved up to Lake City, Florida, which was right under the Georgia border.
Oh, God.
And I have this accent because
there you go.
I was in Miami for 14 years. So they would go, "You're not from around here, are you?" And they thought I was a Yankee. And I would say, well, actually, I'm more southern than you. I come from Miami, and then they would kick my butt. But
well, it's like what Tim Wilson always said about the southern accent. He would always have a thing in his act that said the southern accent stops at Gainesville, Florida. The further south you go from Gainesville, you're back in Michigan.
There you go.
So,
he's right. He's absolutely right. But up in North Florida, that's real southern. That's mud and territory.
That's Leonard Skinner stuff up there.
That's where I spent my formative years.
Gainesville, and yeah.
And everybody in North Florida always talks like Ronnie Van Zant. Hey, man, y'all go Panama City, man. All right, man. All that stuff.
That's very good. Scary. My butt just buckled when you said that.
Oh, me.
Now, so Diane is asking if she can hear a song from Rory Penland.
A song. I wrote we wrote a sketch called Andrew Lloyd Webber's Friday the 13th. Poking fun at the Phantom. This was boy. Years ago, we were doing sketch comedy, and we wrote a whole bunch of like Weird Al Yankovic songs to Andrew Lloyd Webber songs. And I remember the first one. At night he comes to camp to seek his thrill, his power over ice. And what's that sound I hear that came and went? The killer of the Crystal Lake is here, behind your tent. And all the cast would go, Jason.
Wow.
Kill.
Wait. You have such a Broadway voice. You've done a lot of musicals, right?
Well, yeah, I started out, again, when I was around 15, 16, I started doing plays. I started doing theater. In high school, and the first show that I got, I didn't even know I could sing. And the choir director there, I sang. They had a whole bunch of tunes out by the piano, and the choir director said, "Pick one out." And for some reason, I picked out "Isn't She Lovely" by Stevie Wonder, and I sang that. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? And I sang it, and he's like, "Yeah, he can sing." And I was like, "I can."
Wow.
Did you not know that?
And that's where it started.
Didn't you sing along with like the radio and this stuff? You never had heard yourself sing before?
I did, but I didn't think I could sing. I wasn't trained or anything, so I wasn't sure if I had a voice or not. My dad did. My dad played guitar. If you go to YouTube, I posted the few videos that I have of him playing guitar. His name's Fred Penland, and there's picking guitar and singing. He was a guitar picker, and there's one of there of me and him singing "Who's Sorry Now, Who's Sorry Now,
oh my
whose heart is aching for breaking each vow." Yeah, he was into,
you should do like a Terry,
all kinds of music back then.
You could have done like a Terry Fator thing, the puppeteer who sings as Muppets. You would have won AGT. I could see that. You could have incorporated your
again for that same sketch comedy show. We actually wrote 2 skits called Stephen King's Storybook Time, and there were live puppet shows going on over to the side. We had a guy that looked like Stephen King in our group, and he would read the story. He would narrate, and then we would have all these bloody puppets. Hacking arms off and stuff. It was hysterical. I mean, people and we had a splash zone in the front of the audience.
I believe it. Yes.
Okay. So
a gory puppet show.
Oh yeah.
And we had Little Blood Red Riding Hood was one of them, and Snow White and the Schizophrenic Dwarf.
Oh my!
Oh.
And I think those are on YouTube somewhere.
Oh boy!
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
So, Rory, you, like I said, you were born in Miami. You go up to Lake City. Mm-hmm. What age was it where you first said to yourself, where you were first starting to get the comedy bug? Because I know you have been a stand-up comedian for many, many years. When did you first get that urge? Was it in Miami, or was it after you'd moved up to Lake City?
This is kind of an embarrassing story. I went down to Tampa on a scholarship now to finish up my college, my last 2 years down in Tampa at USF. And I got there, and somebody had talked me into going to a comedy club. And I had done a little bit of stand-up comedy kind of per se in contests and stuff like that before then. I did one up in Lake City. I came in second in the competition. I did my voices. And I did. And I was singing. I was actually doing singing song parodies. And
let me break in just 1 second. What were you doing? What voices were you doing early in your comedy career? What were you doing in Lake City?
Typical ones. Jimmy Stewart. For that set, I did Jimmy Stewart. I did Johnny Cash.
Oh gosh,
doing rock and roll. I love rock and roll. Put another dime in the jukebox, baby. and I did Ricky Ricardo.
That is fantastic. That is
Ricky Ricardo doing
fantastic.
Give me all your loving, give me all your loving, all your housing, babaloo. So I mean, just really sticky stuff back then, you know. In the oh god, that was the '80s, the early '80s. And then I went to Tampa, and I started going to the comedy clubs in Tampa in around '88. And I talked to the I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I talked to the guy who was the host of the show. He was also the doorman at the comedy club there called the Comedy Corner. And I said, if you ever want to take time off, you know, I can fill in for you as a host. I said, I've done some comedy, and I'm making all this stuff up as I go along. I said, I've done some comedy, and, you know, I've done some hosting shows, and I'm comfortable in front of crowds. He goes, really? Oh, great. Because, you know, yeah, I'd like to get a couple of nights off to do different things. So as luck would have it, they liked my shtick. They liked my voices. He was out like within a month or two, and I was the house MC. And that's my routine. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Good for me, not so good for him.
Yeah, no, I feel bad. Well, he's not on the network, so we don't. My heart is not going to. I'm a little biased.
You're in Tampa now. We've gone from Miami Lake City to Tampa. So now, what possessed you to start the first iteration of It's Casual?
Oh yeah.
Because for those of you who don't know, It's Casual did exist before the state it's in now as a public access show in Tampa, Florida.
You can see it on
Rory,
YouTube.
how'd that come about?
We had Jim Moss on my show. He was the producer of that show. And it was on public access cable in Tampa. And I had already met a couple of people from the comedy. I'd already met a couple of people on like TV 13. I met Jay Vilwalk, who was down there, and Kathy Fountain, who was one of the reporters down there. And they had done stories on comedy and me and my James Bond fanaticism. I'm a huge James Bond fan. And at that time, I had a huge collection of stuff, which they did a story on. But Gary Platisse had a show on public access, and he wanted me to come on his show as his co-host. He wanted an Egg McMahon, and I came on, and he basically kind of abused me. A lot of fat jokes and stuff, you know, at my expense, and eventually he didn't like the fact that I didn't play along, and I was talking to other people at public access, and I talked to Jim, and Jim said, "Yeah, why don't we do a show with you?" He said, "You're a lot funnier than Gary." And we ended up starting it's called The Show, or You Got the Show. You Got the Show was the first name of it.
Okay.
And then eventually we called it It's Casual because people were making fun of me wearing suits and ties and my neck. Hey, where's your fucking neck? It was a live call-in show, so we took a lot of views there too.
I wanted to know the origin of the name all this time, and I never knew. So it was because you were overdressed?
I was overdressed in the first season, the first few months.
So they would say, "Hey, it's casual. Like you don't need to overdress."
But I also like the idea of being casual with my guests. You know, casual questions, a casual chat, not too proper and prim, and you know.
Right.
I mean, I wanted the show to be casual.
Awesome.
So
there you go.
So they got a nice big wicker chair to sit in, and everything kind of relaxed into place once we changed that.
My favorite part, just for anyone who goes into YouTube and figures it out, is when you had a guest change, kind of like we did tonight, and you ended up interviewing your cameraman. and
Jim hates that show. That was like the show that Jim hates worse than any other show.
And
I love it.
It culminates with Rory saying, "You're a silly guest. Get out of here. You're a silly guest." I love that. You're a silly guest.
I stole a Monty Python line.
You're a silly
guest, and we don't want you here anymore.
That reminds me.
Yeah, my cameraman was Bill the Nothing Guy. He does nothing. He just sponges off his face.
Nothing guy.
He was a great character. I love that guy.
That's how we did our plan B for our show. If we called it at last second.
We could have reprised him tonight. You know, this is fascinating, but maybe another time.
And I was about to say, 30 odd years later, nothing's changed. So, Rory. Renee brought up a great point talking about memorable guests with Bill the Nothing Guy. Now, what are some others that stand out? I know there was a particular Madonna impersonator that
Well,
you
she
had on
wasn't
the
Madonna
show?
impersonator. She thought she had her own thing going. Her name was Sandra Prill.
Sandra
And
Prill.
she started out when she was like 14, and when she got on my show, she was like 16. And her mother
Oh.
was one of those tiger moms.
It's like so sad,
and
though.
she thought that her daughter was going to be the next Madonna. And the problem was Sandra could sing, but sometimes she wasn't very trained as a singer. Sometimes she would sing off key. And there were people on the station that thought that was hysterical. They thought that was very funny. So, I mean, there's a video out there of her singing the national anthem that they used to play at the end of every night on Jones Public Access, and she is singing way off key on that, and it's just it's just cringeworthy.
It's so cringeworthy.
And I guess she just figured out eventually that everybody was making fun of her, and she didn't like the joke, and she disappeared. And this happened after she got on Wikipedia. She's got her own entrance on Wikipedia.
People are looking for her.
People are looking for her. She has thousands of followers on YouTube that are looking for her.
It's kind of like the guy who was really bad on American Idol. What's his name?
I know who you're talking about. I can't remember.
Richard Hung or whatever. Is his name Hung? Like yeah, it's like sometimes you're so bad, you're interesting, right? I don't know.
The R Girls one of my favorites to have on. They were so funny.
They were so good. And we had them back. And we had
them back on the show. Yeah.
God, it was a ton of fun too.
They hadn't been together in like 20 years.
That was a fantastic show, but I got to give a shout out to the show I get asked the most about. I know it just happened, but of course is Billy Vera. I get asked about that all the fucking time. I mean, that was a fantastic show. I
finally talked my daughter into watching Buckaroo Banzai last night.
There you go.
That's great.
And I just want to talk to other people that were in that movie now.
We should just do a whole show and like
make a whole anthology about it.
I want to interview Goldblum.
I reached out to a lot of people this last couple of days for October, for Halloween type stuff for October. So, and I'm hoping to get some answers back from people.
Going on. We're gonna have so much. No,
I got one rejection today.
By who?
He was a screenwriter and producer, and he wrote the screenplay for the movie Transylvania Twist, which it's one of those movies. It's really kooky and nutty, and I like to watch it like once or twice a year just for fun.
Is it one of those movies that's so bad it's good?
Exactly. It's really, really bad punchlines, jokes. But I mean, so bad they're funny. I mean, I just love to drink a beer and watch that movie, and it just tickles me.
Look at Diane wanted to know who inspired the jelly cake character.
Character?
He's a real person. He's real. He's real, and he's stealing your song, Rory. There will be a lawsuit.
I wrote it for him. No, jelly cake's the best. He's cool.
Oh, right. Well, right. He's a real person, so he's not inspired by anything.
He's where it's at.
He's where it's at. Yeah.
I just hope he finds himself a band.
I know. He's been looking for a while. He's been looking for a while. Now, another thing I want to ask you is, who are your heroes? Like, who would you be just totally gobsmacked?
Good question.
Yeah.
Definitely Jonathan Winters is one of my heroes.
Oh, yes.
Way back when. He was one of my dad's heroes. Used to make my dad really laugh. Yeah. And I used to love to watch my dad laugh. He used to make my dad laugh a lot. When I saw Monty Python and the Holy Grail in the movie theater with my dad, we were in the front row because it was sold out. And it was like 1974 or 1975, I think. 74 maybe. And I never saw my dad fall out of a seat until that night. That night I saw him fall out of a seat laughing. He thought that was so hysterical. And it was at the scene where the Black Knight is getting his arms cut off. I thought my dad was going to have a heart attack. It was But Peter Sellers was another one that was a hero of my dad's and a hero of mine. I loved his characters. And
amazing.
Later on, I read the book about his life, his biography, and I watched a movie about it. And it said he was not a really nice person in real life. But it
happens with a lot of our favorite people.
Yeah, don't meet your heroes, kids.
Don't meet your heroes.
So I love to go back and find an old Peter Sellers movie where he's playing a character, or two or three.
Right. Renee's question made me think of another great one. Who are some of your major comedic influences? I know you've mentioned Jonathan Winters and Peter Sellers, but who else in the comedy world inspired you to take this up?
I'm very lucky to work with Henny Youngman back when I was an MC. He was great. He actually came in. I was behind the front desk in the front lobby of the club, the Comedy Corner again, and I was answering the phones. And he came in the afternoon before the show, before the first show, and he actually slung the door open and made an entrance. I thought was really hysterical. He was great. And Phyllis Diller is another one that came in and I got to work with. She was a lot of fun. Looked totally different when she walked out of the club in her civvies. You never would have even recognized her if you didn't know what you were looking for. And Judy Tenuta is a great comic. She's a wonderful lady. I got to work with her several times. And unfortunately, Richard Jenny, who committed suicide, one of my favorite all-time comics. He could do an hour and 15 minutes, and it would just fly by. He would just do, it was so effortless for him. To just tell a 10 or 15 minute story, that just kept you rolling laughing. So I loved Rich Jenny. God, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of people that I've worked with that I really enjoyed working with.
Right.
Mike Wilson, is a good friend of mine.
Mike
Philip Wilburn is a friend I made this year who is becoming a very close friend. I really dig it with Philip.
Who's the most memorable person you've ever worked with?
The most memorable.
Jonathan and Dennis and Diane, of course.
Yeah, besides us.
Yeah.
I just had to throw that in there.
J.J. Walker, I worked with him.
No, you did not.
What?
Don't you?
I did.
No.
Jimmy Walker.
That happened to me. That's all I would say when Renée Yaworsky I worked with.
Yeah.
How did you hold out? How did you hold out on us? That's the cool. Tell us something about him.
Wow.
It's because it wasn't a pleasant week.
No, don't ruin this.
Don't ruin it.
If you can't
when he comes into a club, he wants to go on stage the minute he hits the room. If the feature act is up for 5 minutes, they'll red light him and tell him to get off. And again, the guy that was working with him that week, Phil Tagliaferri, was very cool about it. He's like, hey, I get paid no matter what. So, but I just kind of saw it as like, wow, Andrew Dice Clay.
You worked with Dice.
I got to drive Dice Clay around for a week.
Oh, Jesus Lord.
What was he like?
Entourage. He used to hang out with his two high school buddies, Dutch and Joey. And Dutch was kind of his manager, and Joey was kind of a gopher. He went and got the girls and every other thing that Dice did. So that was a very strange week.
You do an impersonation of him, right? I mean,
Daffy Dice Clay. That kills me every time. Every time.
It's a beautiful thing. but Damon Wayans, I worked with Damon Wayans, and I had gotten a poster for the movie Punchline, and had him sign it at the end of the week. And that week, I was doing a Taco Bell bit that was not working. It just wasn't working. I couldn't get it to work. I never did get it to work. And he wrote on my poster, Rory, if you ever get that Taco Bell bit to work, then you're a real comic. And he actually ditched me in a club on the wrong side of town. He had me drive him there, and then like an idiot, I went in with him. And he lost me. And I had to find my way back to my car. So that was one of the scariest nights of my life.
You have like the most fascinating life, and we haven't even talked about China yet. Like this is.
I was going to get to that.
Yeah, I was going to get to about 1988 so far.
Oh
yeah,
my God.
We've got to 1988. Just stopped.
But I have to ask also about your book career and your interest in art. I mean, because you also do iconic art, the iconic art project. So I need to know about and you paint. You're a painter, and you're a published author. You've done, you're a writer.
Well, I've been writing screenplays since I was like 19 years old, and the first one I wrote was called Legend of the Hook. It's gone through several title changes.
I like that title.
And it almost got made a couple of times, but the budget on it would have been too high, and that's actually how I got Deadly Species made in 2002. I said, hey, well, maybe you can't do that one, but I got this script, which takes place outside, in the forest. So that's how Deadly Species got made, and I wrote the first book that I wrote was Tales of the Vampire Irregulars, and I hung on to that one for many years. And finally, when the pandemic hit, I had a reason to. I mean, there was nothing else I could do, so I had a reason to publish. So my friend Lee was interested in a story that I was working on called "The Bachelor's Guide to Post-Apocalyptic Success." And when I finished that one, he said, I'll publish the other one. And so he published both of them this year. And I'm working on the second Bachelor's Guide, which is called The Bachelor's Guide to Post-Apocalyptic Dating.
Yeah, where does the inspiration come for these? Like, these are such unique titles and concepts. So where do you get your inspiration?
Well, again, I've always been a horror fan. I've been a vampire fan for ages, and a werewolf fan. So that's where the vampire thing came from. And I thought, what audience could I cater to that's a great audience, that is a very devoted audience? And I thought about, Star Wars and science fiction and that kind of thing. And basically it's people who are not the pretty people, not the jocks, the anti-jocks, but Revenge of the Nerds. And so I wrote this vampire story about these people who are different. They're not like any other vampire. They're not the pretty people, and they accidentally get made into vampires. And I figured my audience would be a very devoted audience for that kind of thing. It's like, oh, hey, anybody can be a vampire if, they're smart, can protect themselves. So,
right.
And then the Bachelor's Guide, I still can't remember where exactly that came from, except for the fact that I said to myself, what would happen if there was a nuclear apocalypse and somebody woke up, like from cryo sleep or something, and he was an idiot, and he's the last guy on Earth. So.
That concept is just funny in and of itself. Like, without anything else, it's just like a funny concept.
So again, that's probably what would happen. The guy that wakes up probably won't be the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree.
It's sort of like in Idiocracy, where the guy who goes to the future, he's not that bright, but he's the smartest one of the future people.
So again, that goes back to the title. He's a bachelor because there's nobody else, and it's a successful guy because there's nobody else to compete with him.
Right. Well, which authors inspire you? I mean, it's like, Dave Barry or whatever. Are you into like
definitely Stephen King and Anne Rice. Anne Rice is a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Anne Rice.
I would bet. Yeah.
Big fantasy. I actually kind of write like Stephen King. I say that very humbly because he's a very good writer as far as getting you into the characters and getting you into the situations. And they're not, he'd be the first to tell you, look, I'm not, the fancy writers with the big long words and stuff like that. I just write a story so that you have a good time reading it.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's kind of stuff I like to read too.
Yeah, that's kind of like the Beatles approach, or not Beatles approach, but the Paul McCartney approach. Paul has said in the past, when asked, about performing live, he says, we want to give the people what they grew up listening to. That's why we don't stray. We don't do nothing fancy. When we do on-stage performances, we just give the folks what they want to hear. And
then they met George Martin. And he started throwing in orchestras.
Yep.
That was when all the orchestras came in.
So, Rory, Renee touched on this just a little bit. Now I'm going to ask you, you stayed in Florida for the first 40 years of your life. What possessed you to move to China?
I grew up watching Japanese kaiju films, Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, stuff like that. And I kind of gotten a yearning for Asian women. I've always thought Asian women were very exotic looking, and I've always, had a kind of a hankering for that, and for lack of a better term, and I met a Chinese girl at the school I was teaching, or not teaching at, but I was working audiovisual here in Orlando, in Kissimmee, at Valencia Community College. I was there for 6 years. And I met this girl there. She was from China. And I was interested in her. I asked her out on a date. And she said, well, actually, I'd just gotten over a bad relationship with a Taiwanese man who brought me here and forced me to work in his restaurant. So she goes, I'm really not looking for a relationship right now. But she goes, I have a high school friend in China who's looking to meet somebody and somebody to help her with her English. So I said, oh, okay. So she gave me her email, and that's how it all started. I met Xiaopeng, my wife, Xiaopeng Luo, in 2002 in July 15th, I think it was.
Wow.
On the internet. And we started emailing back and forth, and I was like, wow, her English is actually really good. Her friend said her English was terrible. And I found out later she was using a program this was actually before we all knew about programs that could translate for us. So this was 2002. So she was cheating by using a program. So when I called her on the phone, I got one of those 7-Eleven phone cards, for like $8.
I remember those, yeah.
And I called her up, and she could barely speak English. And so she taught me a little Chinese, and I taught her some English over the phone. I really enjoyed talking to her on the phone. And eventually, my mother passed away about a month after that. And no, my mother passed away on Mother's Day just before that. She passed away a month before. So I kind of believe my mother kind of brought the two of us together.
There you go.
Now I don't know.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing. I'm kidding.
I know.
It's typical marriage, after,
But
anyway.
you end up you do go there for the girl. You go to get the girl. So you go to China.
I took a trip to Europe to go to the Louvre and different places. And while I was there in England, I said, you know what? Why don't you change your ticket for when you're coming home to come back through Hong Kong? And you'll just do a 2 or 3 day layover in Hong Kong and see if Xiaopeng can come and meet you face to face. So that's what I did. I changed my plane coming back to Hong Kong, and I met her in Hong Kong. I had some inheritance that I had earned, from my mother passing. And that's how I financed the trip to Europe. And she took me all over Hong Kong and to the Jumbo restaurant that's on the water, to the wishing tree. And I made a wish that I'd hope that I could, be with her for forever, that kind of thing. And yeah, because I really liked her when I first met her. And
and that's where the L.A. Jones didn't L.A. Jones?
That's what L.A. Jones did a painting of that. Yeah, well, she was doing those anyway. I just altered it to look like the one in Hong Kong, which is more red and yellow. And she really liked that. She says, "Oh, I really like that color scheme. I'm going to offer that to my customers." And I said, "Okay," but I was the first one. And
there you go.
So after that, I went and bought a wedding ring and an engagement ring. And I went back to meet her 2 months later in November in Beijing. And I had to get the visa to get into mainland China this time. So I had to go through all that paperwork and everything. So on my holiday for Thanksgiving, I went to China to see her in Beijing, and she took me to the Great Wall and to Tiananmen Square. We were staying actually right there at Tiananmen Square. And I got down on one knee and proposed to her on the Great Wall.
Oh my gosh. That is awesome. That is so cool. It doesn't get any more romantic than that.
Well, what's really cool was as we were driving on the bus to this place, it's called Ba Da Ling, where we're going to go on the wall. Our tour guide is saying a lot of people get married on the wall because it symbolizes, longevity and forever. And I'm thinking, yes, I made the right choice. And I got that ring in my pocket. I'm, burning a hole in my pocket. So I felt real good about that. And she accepted. I didn't have to hold her over the side, as my friend said.
Okay, good. Love, yes.
Marry me.
Oh, Lord. Oh, dear.
So in 2004, we had to wait 13 months for her marriage visa. It takes a long time because they want to make sure it's real. They want to make sure it's it's not just somebody trying to get a green card. So you have to wait over a year to get your green card and or your marriage visa, which gives you 3 months to go to America and get married. And I opted for the big wedding, but she said, no, let's go to Las Vegas. I want to go to Las Vegas. And she likes to gamble a little bit. we did the quickie wedding at the Viva Las Vegas.
Wow.
Okay.
We
did.
Now
you have a daughter together and all that. So
Tina.
That's
who is my whole life now.
Exactly. Yeah, you're such a good dad, and we're always so inspired when we see the pictures, and it's like everybody knows her. It's so cool.
I try to be super dad. I really do.
Now let's talk a little bit about the iconic art
man.
project in the minutes we have left, because you're an art aficionado. Where does that come from? Your painting?
I used to love to paint when I was in high school. I stopped doing it when I got to junior college, and for 35 years I didn't paint. And because of the pandemic, I picked up the brushes and I went to Michael's and picked up brushes and paints and canvases, and I decided to start painting again in October last year. And I've painted almost 100 paintings. I had like 97 or 98 paintings now.
Holy cow!
Had to stop because I'm writing, Bachelor's Guide again, and I'm working full time now.
Right. Yep. And you're on Clubhouse too. We want to give a shout out to your Clubhouse rooms. Can you tell people how to find you? First of all, they should follow you on Clubhouse, Rory Penland.
Right.
But also what shows, when do you usually?
Well, the Krusty's show is not, is till further notice, has been called off, ironically.
There's another one though.
So we moved to 7 p.m. for nothing.
No. 7 p.m. is good. But there's another one though.
But the other one is Impersonation Nation on Thursday nights, and it's at 10 o'clock now, Eastern time, which is 7 o'clock Pacific time. But the Iconic Art Project, I would love to talk about that for a minute. When I was in China, I used to visit, one of my favorite places to visit in Shenzhen, where I live next to Hong Kong, is a painting village called Da Fun Painting Village. And in this village, there are like 400 little cubicles with artists. And basically, they are best known for copying, creating replicas of famous art, and that's where all the famous replicas come from. Is that little village? So if you're buying art for like $300 or $400 off the internet, that's where it came from. The canvas. They'll ship the canvases over here, and then they'll stretch them here because it's cheaper, and then they'll sell them from here. So I started collecting famous replicas of art.
That's so cool.
There you go.
That I loved, art that I had seen in museums and stuff. And I've got over 100 now. I've got about 110 canvases here.
Holy wow.
In my collection, everything from, Birth of Venus and on up through, American Gothic by Graham.
And how can people support this project? I mean, you're looking, because you do exhibitions, right? You do shows.
What I would like to do is either tour it or find a venue for it, like an attraction, where they can see all the great, you can see Mona Lisa next to Whistler's mother, all the greats, all the ones that and even then some that are, not so iconic to the normal person per se, the lay person, but I mean, people who love art will know these. So some of them are portraits, self-portraits by artists, and some of them are just famous paintings. The Night Watch, by Rembrandt. I'm trying to think of some right off the top of my head.
Is there a website that people can? I feel like I've seen it somewhere.
I'm working on the website. I've been working on the website. I have somebody working on the website, and unfortunately, it's not up yet. But as I go to museums now. In 2015, I started visiting museums and photographing their collections. So I have photographed over 20 famous museums now. The Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. I've done like 4 or 5 of the famous museums, including the Louvre in Paris, the Orangerie, the Petit Palace. I mean, these are the Orsay. I mean, these are and out in LA, I've done like 3 of the big LA ones. New York, I've done 3 or 4 of the big museums in New York. Some of them wouldn't let me photograph, but I took notes on what paintings were in every, in these museums. And then I went and found those pictures on the internet, and I have my own copy of them, tucked away. And I'm going to add that to that website so that you can see whatever great museums, if you can't afford to go around the world and see all these famous,
you can see them
paintings.
here. I love
you can see them on the website. So that's the second part of the Iconic Art Project.
Right.
The first part is my collection. Hopefully I'm going to get it out there on the road or get it into a building somewhere where people can pay and see it.
Right. Yeah. I'll come. I want to come.
Same. So, ladies and gentlemen, that has been that. A little shorter tonight, but we are cutting it a little bit short because we have another special thing up our sleeves for the next 10 or 15 minutes. So you're going to get a double dose of us tonight. So Rory, thank you for pinch hitting on One Hit Wonderful tonight. We are crossing our toes and fingers and eyes till we can have Jay Thompson on in the near future. And don't forget, there is no One Hit Wonderful next week, but we will be back September the 9th with Travis Lohman. So, Rory, again, thank you
for having me on.
Coming
I appreciate it. And
Renee, thank you for helping this thing along and making it all possible. You both are incredible, and I so enjoy working with y'all. Take care, everybody. May God richly bless, and we'll see y'all in about 15 minutes.